quarterly, and our goal in this is to present on topics of interest, no matter where you are in your journey to parenthood. So just a few housekeeping reminders. We are recording our presentation today. We ask that everybody stay on mute and keep your video off to conserve bandwidth. At the end of our presentation, we will open the floor up for some questions. All right, so let's get started. I want to share a little bit more with you about our Benefit Bump program. So next slide, please. Our program was created by parents for parents. We partner with employers to help employees understand their maternity benefits, leave entitlements, and then also help with develop a return to work plan. Each care team is assigned to one participant, and we offer individual and personalized human interaction. So our care teams are led by master's level clinicians who we call care navigators. We also have leave advocates and benefit experts. So if there are those challenging questions that come up about your benefits, we can loop in our benefit expert to help answer some of those questions that may come up. Our program uses an emotional health forward model, and that is really the core of what we want to do, is make sure that we're focusing on how are you feeling and how can we help you get the resources that you need. When we're not available, we have the Benefit Bump app, which is a great resource. There are checklist items in there to help you know what is coming up on your journey, and then you can check off items that you've already completed. There are also some really great resources, some helpful articles, and I think that, just again, you can go back to your benefits that your employer offers to you. Okay, next slide, please. So let me introduce Kamaria Hopkins. She's a holistic practitioner. She is trained as a dance movement therapist and soon to be a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Illinois. She's a certified aromatherapist. She's also trained in nutrition for mental health, and she serves as a prenatal and postpartum doula. So she wears many hats, and she's very talented, and also is a mother of a little guy who's about to turn 4 in a few days. So I'm excited to introduce Kamaria Hopkins.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be a part of this Benefit Bump webinar, and especially during Mental Health Awareness Month, which is definitely an issue that's near and dear to my heart as a clinician, but also really kind of zooming in on maternal mental health and mental health for the entire family. I know personally, after the birth of my son, I struggled with postpartum anxiety and depression, and it was really critical to have some knowledge and awareness around what to expect and when to reach out for help. So I'm happy to be here and to talk about this issue. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the childbearing year. So basically what that means is the entire process from fertility through the postpartum period. So, the beginning stages of thinking about starting a family, the pregnancy, and then that first year after giving birth. So typically, of course, this is thought of as a joyous time, and rightfully so. You're welcoming to your family a new child, but with such a big life event, you can have some mixed feelings, and it can cause stress and sometimes lead to mood disorders and a need for some help with your emotional and mental well-being. So let's start out with a few facts. So in general, 10% of pregnant women, and some studies say as many as 20%, as well as 13% of women who have given birth experience some type of mental health disorder. The most prevalent is postpartum depression, but it's just important to sort of look at that as our baseline, that this is something that is common. It's not anything to be ashamed of. And so it's just really, really key to bring some awareness to this, so that as you're preparing for this joyous occasion in your life, you're also prepared to navigate some of the ups and downs that may come during this time period. So in addition, I wanted to just briefly highlight some disparities that exist. So we know that we're already going in with potential for some struggles with mental health. For mothers of color, particularly Black mothers, there is a much higher risk for maternal mortality, as well as 2-time risk for morbidity than their white counterparts. So I just wanted to mention that as an additional risk factor for mental health during this childbearing year. And then lastly, there's so much focus on maternal mental health, and rightfully so, but we don't want to leave out our fathers and spouses. So rates of paternal depression range from 5 to 10%. And if it's not addressed or treated, it can lead to sort of an impaired bonding with the child. So we want to make sure that we're looking out for dads as well during this time. So let's just briefly talk a little bit about each unique stage. So during the fertility phase, you are managing your stress levels and your emotional well-being as you're attempting to start your family. So in general, that can be a nerve-wracking time. Add on top of that, any issues with infertility, and you're likely to see an increased risk for anxiety and depression. During the pregnancy stage, naturally, we have those mixed feelings coming in. We're excited, but we're also nervous. We don't know what to expect. If you're a first-time parent, there are a lot of uncertainties around the pregnancy process, labor and birth, and of course, once baby is here, what that will look like, what type of mother or father will you be. So all of that can affect your overall mood and emotional well-being. Then lastly, we have the postpartum phase, and you are experiencing a shift in hormones as you transition from pregnancy to postpartum, and that along with the pressures of parenthood and reduced sleep and learning how to take care of this tiny human, all of that can be a recipe for mental health distress. So this is really, really a key time to lean on your support systems, whether it's your natural supports of family or reaching out to a mental health provider or a support group. So when we look at mental health and fertility, one key fact to look at is depression among infertile couples is significantly higher, anywhere from 15 to 54% higher than fertile couples. So you want to really be aware of that. If you are a family that's struggling with infertility, there is a similar increased risk for anxiety as well. So one thing to watch out for during this time, especially if you are struggling with infertility, is social isolation. Now, of course, over the last year, that has been a concern for our entire country during our pandemic, but there is additional risk for social isolation during this time. If you're grieving, if you feel any shame, or if you don't know other families or friends that are experiencing infertility, it can feel lonely. So it's important to just be on the lookout for isolating yourself from your closest supports. So a couple of things that you can do to sort of counteract that is mindfulness or meditation, creating a daily routine, really being watchful of your thoughts and how you're talking to yourself, how you're narrating the process of fertility and getting pregnant. There are specialty fertility yoga groups that can really be wonderful to help you stay connected to your body at this time, help you to relieve stress, and be with other women and birthing families who are going through the process. Additionally, there are specialty support groups just for fertility and fertility issues so that you don't feel so isolated or alone. So now we come to the pregnancy stage, and a fast fact here is that unfortunately 7 out of 10 women will hide or underplay their perinatal mental illness. There can be some shame around that because, as I mentioned earlier, this is thought to be such a happy, joyous time. So if you're feeling sadness or fear or anything that doesn't fit into what is expected during this time, it can cause you to maybe question if you're normal. And I just want to let you know that your feelings are valid, your feelings are normal, there's nothing wrong with you. And there are many other women and families who are experiencing this. And it's really important to not keep that to yourself. During this time, we are looking for increased risk for self-harm and suicidality, and we want to make sure that you and baby are safe. So one thing to kind of watch for is that if the mother is experiencing a mood disorder, anxiety, depression, it can affect baby. So there are studies that point to increased levels of anxiety, heart rate increase, decreased activity in the part of the brain that controls emotions. So that's not shared to scare you, but just to encourage you to stay on top of your own mental health and make sure that you're talking to your OB, your primary care doctor, seek out a therapist if you need to, so that your mental health and well-being is taken care of, and that in turn will help baby stay healthy and strong. So a couple of mental wellness hacks during the pregnancy stage. Nutrition is really important, making sure that you're getting all of your vitamins and nutrients and minerals, because of course, you're not eating just for you, you're also eating for baby, and that takes a toll on your body, and that can affect your mental health. Vitamin D, for example, if you have low vitamin D, that can increase your chance of depression and anxiety. Vitamin B as well. So making sure that you have whole food, plant-based diet, that you're taking your prenatal vitamins, managing stress through massage therapy or approved exercise can help. And then lastly, I wanted just to touch base on medication. I know there can be a little bit of a stigma around taking medication for anxiety, depression, other mental health issues in general, but especially while you're pregnant. And I just want to reassure you that there are some medications that are safe. So in conjunction with your doctor, don't be afraid to have that conversation. Sometimes medication in conjunction with therapy can really be the best option and help you to go on to have a healthy pregnancy, mind, body, spirit.
Kim, can I just make one comment about the medication piece? Like, as
Please.
clinicians, we like to say that medication is like wearing a life jacket kind of out in the middle of the ocean, that it can just help you stay afloat and kind of level the playing field so that when you go talk to your therapist about whatever it is that's bothering you, the triggering effects aren't the same as if you're not wearing your life jacket out in the middle of the ocean. So again, medication is a life jacket and therapy is teaching you how to swim so you can take off the life jacket.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good reminder, a good analogy. Thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about mental health and postpartum, because I think that when we talk about maternal mental health, that's sort of the area that most people think of. So postpartum depression and anxiety typically peak around 4 months post-delivery, and it can persist up to a year and beyond if left untreated. So it's really important to seek out help if you notice some of the signs and symptoms, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But one thing to watch for, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of focus on mom, but we don't want to forget about dad or spouse during this time. Parent fathers can experience postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and we want to make sure that we're not missing those signs. One thing to note is that fathers who are more involved in the care of their child have a decreased risk for postpartum depression. So that's something to note as you navigate this time of pregnancy and postpartum, making that time to spend with baby and really supporting each other can really go a long way in reducing your risk for that. So mental health wellness hack for this stage, again, therapy, especially if you have been diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, depression, psychosis. If it's more severe than just a couple of weeks, we'll get into the differences. You want to seek out a therapist, and there are many wonderful clinicians who specialize in maternal mental health. And I know BenefitBump, they have a ton of resources and can help with accessing some of these mental wellness hacks, whether it be therapy or other resources. Additionally, having like a regular routine as far as exercise, whether it's a walk, getting out in the sunshine, yoga, there are a number of different ways to do that. I didn't list it here, but again, nutrition plays a key role. But I would say probably most important is the support system. So partners supporting each other. If you have grandparents involved, friends who can help in the care of the child, giving the parent that is struggling with postpartum depression a break, really prioritizing that parent's self-care is really, really important. Okay, so let's look at the spectrum of mood disorders. So you probably have heard a lot about the baby blues. So the baby blues are completely normal. Many mothers experience baby blues, and usually that happens right after birth and can last up to a couple of weeks. And you'll notice that baby blues and postpartum depression, there are a lot of overlapping symptoms. So under baby blues, you do see mood swings, sometimes anxiety, sadness, irritability, feeling overwhelmed. You may have trouble sleeping in addition to reduced sleep that naturally comes with parenthood, appetite problems. So you may not see all of these things, but these are just some examples of what might present during baby blues. This is really, like I said, this is normal, and it is usually more mild. So the distinguishing factor between baby blues and postpartum depression is the severity. So postpartum depression, you'll want to reach out to your provider if there is an extended period of these symptoms. So if it starts to get into a month, 2 months, or the mood swings are more severe, the crying is more excessive, if there's any difficulty with bonding with baby, withdrawing from family, friends, extreme anger, extreme irritability. Also really key is any feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, shame, that also might include thoughts of harming yourself or baby. Those are emergency situations, and you want to, if necessary, call 911 or call your OB provider, your therapist, to seek immediate help. So then we also have postpartum anxiety, and this has been getting more spotlight in recent years, it had always in the past been more postpartum depression, but postpartum anxiety is also prevalent, and that looks more like constant worry. You might have more physical sensations, so the heart palpitations, the hypervigilance, sweating, shakiness, racing thoughts. You may find yourself using all of your energy just to try and get through the day. And I say that because that's one way that I experienced it when I had postpartum anxiety. It just took all of my energy to kind of get through the day because of the racing thoughts and I had a very physical manifestation of the anxiety. So lastly, I just want to note postpartum psychosis. This is pretty rare, but at times we do see hallucinations, paranoia, disorientation, and again, sometimes attempts to self-harm or harm baby. And again, that's an emergency situation that you want to seek help for. I just wanted to quickly note the impact of COVID-19 on mental health, particularly as it pertains to mothers and families. We've seen obviously an increase in isolation. We've seen many mothers in particular quit jobs, reduce hours in order to care for their children, due to a lack of childcare and school closures. Add on top of that personal and collective grief and loss, and that can all impact maternal and familial mental health. So here are a couple of quick resources that will just give you like a fact sheet on what to look for, additional things to look for that I didn't get a chance to cover, support systems, other resources related to maternal mental health. But now I think we're going to move into our Q&A. So if you haven't yet, you can type a question in the chat and I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Kamaria. So my name is Kate Saunders. I am another care navigator here at BenefitBump, and I am managing questions for today. I will just say before we dive into a couple questions that I know we're getting close to time. So if people need to jump off, just remember that this is being recorded, so you can always refer back and hear what the questions are later. We have a few questions that were sent in ahead of time that I want to make sure we touch on. So we will just dive in. One question that came through was, I think my partner is experiencing baby blues symptoms. What can I do for her?
Okay. So I would say where I would start is to simply acknowledge it, to have a gentle talk with your partner. I know for me personally, being seen was really important during that time, and not being shamed or doubted in those feelings. So I think that is a really good place to start. We talked a little bit about the difference between the baby blues and postpartum depression and anxiety. And so I would just encourage you to kind of keep an eye out on the severity of symptoms and the timeline. So if you notice that those symptoms are increasing or becoming more extreme or lasting for longer than about a month, then encouraging your partner to seek out help from their primary to be evaluated and possibly seeking out a therapist.
Well, that actually piggybacks into another question that we had. And I'm not sure, Kamaria, if this would be best for you or maybe for Amanda. But the question is, I am a full-time working mom and I have returned to work, but I'm still struggling with my mental health. What resources are available to me?
Yeah, I can take that question. So with BenefitBump, we are able to get you connected to your EAP, where we can help you with the EAP, can help you understand figuring out a childcare plan or getting you connected with mental health services. We also at Benefit Bump, we also have a proprietary network of mental health providers who specialize in maternity mental health. And so we can get you connected with any of those providers too. And then also I like to mention that that our care navigators all have a clinical lens to help shape the conversations. If anybody is having issues with returning to work and how to have that conversation with their manager, we can be a part of that process and help with any concerns that you have during that time. Yeah, so I think that those are some ways that Benefit Bump can help. Kamari, did you have anything you wanted to add as far as other ideas that you have?
I think that covers it pretty well. I was just thinking, really taking time to assess that work-life balance, and then, reaching out for supports, whether it's therapy or possibly even a support group. But yeah, I think you covered it well.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head as far as the work-life balance. It is hard. It can be really challenging to balance kids, personal time, and work. And yeah, I appreciate that we're able to provide these supports to other families.
I think we just have one more question that I'm seeing right now, and that is, I know you've talked about how to manage kind of mental health, emotional well-being after you start noticing symptoms, but we have a question: what can I do to decrease my chances of experiencing postpartum depression in the first place?
Okay, that's a good question. I just want to note that if you have a history of a mood disorder, that can sort of naturally increase your risk. So that's just something to be aware of if you are coming in with any type of history. But in general, things that you can do proactively to help decrease the risk, I would say sort of the same things that you would do for your general emotional well-being. So, really quality sleep, nutrition, again, your self-care. Are you able to do the things that fill your bucket, to take a break? We talked about the work-life balance, and your natural supports, whether it's from your partner, friendships, family, all of those things that sort of make up your emotional well-being. Even therapy, even if there's not a particular issue going on, therapy can be, you can attend therapy as a maintenance, a form of maintenance, just to kind of check in and see what's going on. So doing a couple check-ins, during the fertility stage or during the pregnancy stage, is another good way to be proactive about your mental well-being.
Awesome.
That is the last. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
I was just going to say that was the last question we had, but I wanted to throw one really creative idea that my doula actually gave me during my pregnancy about preventing the baby blues. And she said that my husband and I should sit down and make a list of anything that anyone could do around the house or with the baby or for us to help us, and tape it to the fridge so that when people came over, I didn't even have to delegate a task. They could just read what to do and do it. And that was a really useful piece of advice for me from a self-care or like a preparation lens.
I love that. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kamaria, for sharing all that wonderful information about maternity or mental health and for new and expecting parents. That was really helpful. And if anybody is interested in learning more information about Benefit Bump, or if you want to schedule a time with a care navigator, please do not hesitate to give us a call. If your company does not currently offer Benefit Bump, again, give us a call and we can have a conversation. So thank you so much for everybody participating today. And one last time, Kamaria, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this message with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, everybody have a lovely day and take care.